Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 11 of CX and Coffee. My name's Justin Robbins. This is a show that I do every single week along my good friend
Marty Shaughnessy.
We get together, we talk about our weekend's shenanigans, we explore a brand new coffee, and we go deep on a topic in the world of customer experience. We are so glad that you chose to join us along for this week's episode. Marty, as always,
11.
So good to see your face, my friend.
Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you.
Are you also feeling the winter? Just I don't know if it's is it the chilling? Is it? I feel like we're in an icy kingdom right now. That is what I feel like.
Yeah. Well, here in Pennsylvania, yesterday we went out to we have a mini barnet on our property, and it was negative 7 degrees, which that's really cold here. It usually doesn't happen. That's the kind where you walk outside and you take a breath, and then all of a sudden the inside of your nose is a little frozen. You know what I mean? You're like, oh boy. Yeah.
I remember I was in Madison, Wisconsin, and it was January, February, the year that polar vortex really made it into the news for the first time. And that feeling you described, Marty, like I could feel the individual bits of my lungs and esophagus freezing as I was trying to take a breath. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about this. I'm looking forward, but I'm not looking forward to. My one son and I, we are doing an ice fishing trip 2 hours north of Minneapolis here in a couple weeks.
Wow.
I was looking at the forecast from this past weekend, and the air temperature was negative 25 with the wind chill was like negative 50.
Now, are you guys like renting a little like hut and they're doing it for you? I mean, is it part of like a package, or are you guys just going to go out and drill a hole?
So we are staying in essentially like a small little hut cabin thing on the ice.
Okay, yeah.
It will have heat and a little kitchenette, and then the holes drilled into the floor inside of the hut. So we will get to stay inside of a heated building for the weekend.
That's really
still
cool.
going to be cold, right? You still you still have to get outside at some point. There's not avoiding it.
Right. Yeah, you have to get there.
You have to get there.
But where you're at now, so you guys did get some snow.
We did get snow. We were part of this, freakish southern band of things. And I'd imagine some of you was talking to a friend in Lafayette, Louisiana. There, this is not a thing. It's crazy. The kids have been enjoying it, but Marty, I was telling you before we started filming that we don't have salt trucks. There's really nothing they can do other than shut down the highways and ask people to not be stupid.
Yeah, how's that going?
We haven't left the neighborhood. It's the kids have had so much fun building snowman, and I will say yesterday was a bit distracting. I'm here in my office and I've got a window to my right, and I keep hearing giggles and laughing, and you just watch golf carts screaming down the street with some sort of rope and a kid on a boogie board, or I think I saw a kayak at one point.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's fun. But Marty, I don't like the cold.
See, I don't mind. I like one good snowstorm. So I would count this as the one good one that, and after this, I'm ready for spring weather, but I don't mind it. I don't know if that's grown up in Massachusetts or whatever. I haven't gotten to the age where I hate the cold all the time. So it looks pretty, you know what I mean? It's just, so now we've got a new puppy, so we've been having to go outside a lot more, and that's influenced my, okay, all right, I'm ready for some spring weather.
Well, that to me is I think part of the factor for me is I love being out in it. When we lived in the north, I loved snowshoeing. I loved winter hiking. Awesome. But it was being active in it. Now it feels like I'm sitting in my office. I'm dressed warmly, and yet I'm somehow still cold.
Yeah.
It's just not. I think that's it. It's like the cold creates this oppressive vibe.
Yeah. When you can feel it in your bones.
That's it for me, Marty. That's what it is. That's what it is.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. But it's fine. It's fine. It is January after all. I suppose we have to accept it to some degree for those of us that, well, even for those of us that were living in parts of the country that shouldn't be. You know what?
Yeah.
We all get to share in it together this year, I suppose.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spread it around.
Spread it around. Spread it around. Other than the winter weather, how was your weekend? Did you get into anything fun?
I've been taking a little break from pottery. I actually got back into throwing some clay. So I'm excited about that. I'm actually taking a formal class starting next week. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's been a fun adventure. And you get in there with your hands and it's funny as that thing's spinning around, you're like shaping this, and it's like, wow, this is really cool. And then I go in, and my big thumb bumps something, and then all of a sudden it's all wobbly. So sometimes you feel like a clumsy oaf, but it's been really cool. It's been really cool to try something new and make things for people that you love, and so yeah, I'm excited.
Pottery fascinates me. I love it. And it's like, especially some of the stuff that we have a friend who, I mean, he's really into pottery and ceramics and like all of that, and it's just incredible what you can do with, if you think about the raw materials involved. It's awesome. It's awesome to think about it.
Yeah. Well, not so much where I live now because I'm on a bunch of shale. But I remember growing up and just finding like, by the water, finding big clumps of clay. And it's like people go and reclaim that and you clean it out and that's what they build with. I mean, it's that's what it is. The clay is just the stuff that you buy has just been cleaned, but it's not manufactured. It's not like Play-Doh. It's like the real stuff from the earth, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Super cool. Look at you.
Yeah.
So does this mean that, maybe in a few months we can offer a line of artisan CX and coffee mugs fashioned by Marty?
Yeah, I've made probably over a dozen. Some. I mean, they all hold coffee. Some are uglier than others, but yeah, no, that
Unique.
unique, rustic. They're
Rustic. One of a kind.
one of a kind for sure. Yeah, no, I'll make you one. I'll make you a nice one.
All right. All right.
Do you like large cups of coffee or small cups? Like what's your preference when you go into your cabinet?
So
You like a big
this
cup?
this is an interesting question, Marty, because I'd say I'm an equal opportunist when it comes to the mug. I think it depends on how much I feel like getting back up from my desk. I am a fast drinker with all beverages, and so if I have a small cup, I'm going to go through it fast. But what's interesting is Marie and we make a pot in the morning, and we know our pacing based off of the cup size, and we try to have a similar size mug, so then there's an equal distribution of coffee in the morning. But
Okay.
as an example, today, the CX and coffee mug is quite large, and normally I can get 3 cups of coffee, but this fits 2 perfectly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I didn't answer your question, but I have more large mugs than I have small mugs. How about that?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I drink coffee slowly. So if I'm not using something like, a Yeti or the CX and coffee mug, my coffee gets cold. So I end up like microwaving it a lot. So that's why if I am going for a coffee cup, I go for a smaller one.
Yeah.
I'd rather get some hot fresh coffee than have to microwave just because I drink it slow.
Yes. Oh, I'm fully for always you want the coffee to be hot, and
Yes.
the size of the cup should be proportionate to the speed at which you drink the coffee. There's an official formula. We'll publish that
Yeah, I'm
on
seeing
the
all
Metric
fingers
Sherpa
bouncing around my
website.
head right now.
Yeah.
The equation. The equation.
I need some chalk. I gotta scribble on my wall here for a few minutes. Good.
So, speaking of coffee,
Speaking of coffee.
what do we got this week?
Yeah, well, before we jump into this week, I want to give everybody an update. I did stick with my commitment. Last week I said I wanted to start a new project this year, and that is going to be the infinity jar.
Mm.
So we've got our Hershey Nibby grounds from last week are here setting our foundation for the year. So we'll keep that hanging out on the bookshelf and refill it every week and see at the end of the year what happens when we stick all of that in a filter and brew ourselves a pot.
It's gonna be delicious.
It will be something, Marty. It will be something. This week, we are drinking coffee from Partners Coffee Roaster in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
Had the opportunity to go to New York last month for an event, and there was a number of coffee shops that I stopped in. Had some coffee, and Partners was on the shelf there, and really enjoyed what I tried. And so I was looking at their bags and was trying to figure out what had the most interesting tasting notes.
Mm.
And that's what got me to this one, which is their El Ramo blend. And El Ramo features tasting notes of peach, fresh cream, and vanilla.
Peach. That's unique.
From the back of the bag, El Ramo is a project that showcases the impeccable flavor profile of Colombian coffees. El Ramo, meaning the bouquet in Spanish, is comprised of seasonally rotating lots from some of our favorite producers in the region. The result is a beautiful offering that is blended to maintain an exceptionally sweet and approachable profile all year round.
That's some good marketing speak there.
It is. It was good. And of course they have some fun other messaging on. I mean, they have actually. There's a lot of copy on this bag now that I'm looking at it. Here, Howdy Partner is telling us a little bit about their origin, and they also have a subscription service. So on the other side, talks about their coffee subscription there as well. So this is Partners Coffee Roasters from Brooklyn, New York. I love peach desserts. A homemade vanilla ice cream or cinnamon ice cream with a peach cobbler or a peach dumpling. Can't go wrong. There is actually a place, so driving from Wilmington to Charlotte, maybe about 2.5, 3 hours, somewhere in the midpoint there, there's a roadside farm stand called Peaches and Cream, and they make the most amazing peach cobbler when it's in season. There's just big, like the foil trays of it that has, I mean, it's just the buttery crumb. It's stupid, Marty. I can't drive by that place when it's in season and not get it. It is, oh my goodness. So anyway, point is, when I saw this coffee on the shelf, all that I could think of was that roadside stand and my love for peach cobbler vanilla ice cream. So we'll see. It's probably not going to be anything like that. In my mind, that's the fantasy that I've been building up. Let's give it a sniff. So what's interesting about this is it's got a floral, almost perfumey nose to it.
Like a meme kind of like floral.
I don't know what that is, Marty.
Like a grandmother floral kind of thing. or like a more of like an herbaceous.
No, more herbaceous. It's not honeysuckle, but this, like, there's certain sense, like I remember as a kid we had huge honeysuckle bushes in our backyard, and it's like you'd walk out of the house and that just like
Yeah.
pleasing like aroma just kind of lofts in. I'd say it's almost like spring day type of,
Okay.
things are blooming. Now I'm just making stuff up,
Any
but
peach?
I don't know that that's, again, so I feel this is one of those where I'm gonna look for it, so I could say that it is.
Right.
I don't know that I would jump off that, but definitely a floral perfumey, very pleasant, not overpowering, not. Now you're just making me think of like walking into my great grandmother's second floor apartment. There's a dish of buttermints
Yeah.
Lawrence Welk is on TV and I can't breathe because of whatever she doused herself in.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all.
Okay. Good.
Aw. All right, El Ramo Partners Coffee Roasters, Brooklyn, New York. Let's give it a go. It's good. So there's definitely a bit more of a thickness in the mouthfeel, not full. I think is how like the flavor is almost it's way more robust than I think some of the other coffees that we had, and it's not. It doesn't necessarily advertise roast color on this. I feel like a lot of Colombians are often medium roasts. This gives me a flavor of more of a medium to dark.
Okay.
It's I would it's almost the strength of if you've ever had like I'll say a chocolate covered espresso bean, or just if you've ever had a coffee bean or espresso bean
Yep.
and ever just like the robustness of flavor, it's there.
Okay.
It's very good. It doesn't feel diminished at all.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really really good in terms of substance.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I don't.
Not getting the peach.
No peach, no vanilla, no cream, but I'm okay with it. It's not.
You're not calling them liars. Let's just be clear. You're
I'm
not.
not calling them liars.
We live really close to Trogs Brewing, and they
Hmm.
always put their tasting notes as "We taste this," which I look at as kind of a disclaimer, like we taste brown sugar, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
to each his own.
All right. So I'm not. Yeah, I'm not getting any of those profiles. The other disclaimer I probably should have given ahead of this episode is in between filming, I did have a sinus infection, so I may not just be able to smell and taste the way I typically would be. That may be part of the problem here. But this is good. This is a good cup of coffee.
Nice.
Um,
Good to hear.
it's really good. I mean, this is. All right, so a couple updates. First off, the Nibby coffee, by the way, I thought was like a $12 bag, $17 bag of coffee. So just a revised note from last week, not worth it for the price. This bag, on the other hand, was a $14 bag of coffee, and this is spot on. This is exactly kind of the value for money that I would think I would get with a coffee like this. So to me, this is on the money. Really good. I think what's interesting about this is because they're doing a rotation here. I'd be curious, and maybe we'll look this up from partners, how much this blend actually varies or
Yeah.
changes if they're using different farms. Well, Marty, I would say Partners Coffee Roaster, Brooklyn, New York. Solid blend. This doesn't surprise me. The coffee I had where I was at that shop that inspired me to buy the bag was also awesome. They've got a subscription service, so even if you're nowhere near Brooklyn, they're going to send their coffee to your door. We'll give you more details when we post this video, but 2 thumbs up. Do recommend Partners Coffee Roasters. Here's to you.
Cheers, partners. Cheers.
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 Speaking of partners, you know what this time of year brings for a lot of people, Marty?
Um, you mean other than cold weather
Yeah, yeah. Other than cold weather.
or broken promises to themselves from New Year's resolutions?
Oh, have you broken your promise already, Marty?
No, no, not me. I'm not talking about me. I mean, I can pretend like I don't know what you're going to talk about, but I do know what you're talking about. So, I
That's right.
like reviews. Are you talking about?
Conversations with your HR business partner.
There you go.
That's it's the review season. I had a couple conversations with folks recently, and it was funny. So there's three different conversations, and it was almost the exact same context in all three of them. And they're like, "So now that you're an entrepreneur, how excited are you to not have to do reviews?" Because all three of them, they're entering this time of year now where annual reviews are upon them. And I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth. I'm gonna use from my own experience.
Hmm.
So often the review process feels like this engineered, disparate approach that then you have all of these leaders who are trying to back into what did we think about, measure, talk, work on over the course of the year that now fits into whatever the framework du jour is that we're using.
Yes.
What I'm trying to say, Marty, is I feel like for a lot of organizations, the annual review process is checking off a box and it's not any type of strategic motion whatsoever. What's your take?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a place that you and I used to work where, I mean, gosh, I would say there were weeks where like productivity shut down and people would just go in their offices and close doors because there was this huge long document you had to fill out. And it, to do them right, you have to be thoughtful, right? And hopefully you're having conversations all year because there shouldn't be any surprises. I mean, that's at least my thought. But it did seem like all of a sudden, like people are like, "Oh, it's review time." Okay, yeah, all people are blocking off their calendar. They're unavailable. They're affecting like the output of the department. I was in marketing, and I remember one thing that this place used to do is send out, like if I worked for you, right? Like, hey, guys, working with Marty, what's one thing he does great, and what's one thing that he really needs to work on? And that was just like to start the conversation, and it just seemed like I don't know. I'm not sure I'm a fan of the two questions like what's Justin doing well and what's Justin terrible at. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. It just seemed like an odd place to have people comment on. I'm sure there were better ways to do it, but that didn't work for me.
Well, it's also, I mean, some again, I'll speak from my experience, but honestly, I mean, I've been part of helping a number of organizations now with this process, and what also seems to be like unfortunately common is the criteria for the review process is developed just as you're going into doing the review process. It's hey, this year's reviews are based around these six key areas, and in those six key areas, we've got these 10 dimensions. And it's like, oh gosh, what does this dimension mean, and how does that show up in my environment? It's never okay, Marty. It's the start of the year. A year from now, here's what the review's going to look like, and here's what we're going to measure. Like for like a shocking number of organizations, it's not that at all.
Yeah, I feel like the HR department, at least in this particular situation, we had the pillars, right? Our kind of like goals that we needed to shoot for. And then even when the review process came, there were things that just felt really shoehorned into. Let's put this under trustworthiness, and let's shove this one in here. And it was just awkward because it didn't fit, but it was kind of like, well, we have this existing framework, and to your point, it might have even changed in this new year, right? Like we've added another pillar or a column or something like that, and now we still need to ask the regular questions, but we're just gonna make this part of this and make this part of this, and it just got confusing. And as you're going through, um, as I would go through the review process, and you're sharing with your employee, and they're kind of like, what does that even mean? It's like, well, and you sometimes it made sense, sometimes you had to kind of give the corporate answer there.
Yeah. Well, it's so. All right, so we're gonna come back and visit this piece, but I think first part one that's been kind of rattling around in the back of my mind is why is that the case for a lot of organizations? Why is the review something that seems to catch businesses by surprise every year? Why is it something that isn't defined a year ahead of time? And also, why is it so disconnected from all of the other things that, Marty, you said it shouldn't catch anybody by surprise. Well, we've got to have other things that we're doing throughout the year to monitor performance, to talk about what's working, what's not, what we're accomplishing, what we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah.
Why does it so often happen in isolation from those other things? That's part one that I want to come back and visit. The second, though, I was having coffee with a friend recently, and he was vetting frustration because for them, so the review process, the annual review process, is also tied to their annual merit increases. And where your rating is on your review has a direct line to where your merit increases. The problem is there's only so much merit increase to go around. So in their case, they're like, well, you can only have one top performer.
Yes.
You can only have 4 good performers. You have to have 3 mediocre performers, and you better have 2 terrible, no good, very bad.
Right.
And he was having this real crisis because in some ways he's having to force someone into something that's like actually doesn't align with their performance at all, and is not viewed across the organization, right? It's like every team has these very rigid numbers that they have to fit within as well, which again for me is a bit unsettling. But I'm curious, have you seen that? What's your take on that type of approach?
Yeah, well, that's an awkward conversation to talk to an employee who's been stellar for the last 2 years and brought in like a great year, but you're like, well, I had to give you a meets as opposed to exceeds this year. Why? I was great. I agree. You were great. And in the back of your head, it's like, well, you need room to grow or whatever the thing is. And yeah, I had a team of 6 and I had a great team, but I could only hand out 1 exceeds, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. I understand the financial part, but how is that's a demotivator, right? For somebody who's putting in the work, doing over and above, and then to finally get to the year and be told like, hey, you did the job. Great. You did the job. Maybe next year you can go above, and maybe next year I can give it to you again. Or if I can't give it to, person B, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, that's not a good situation.
No, disclaimer for those of you watching, neither Marty and I are certified and trained HR professionals, but we are going to throw our opinion around heavily for the remainder of the episode of CX and Coffee. And I think it's also an interesting thing to note that what we're talking about is everything to do with the employee experience, but the employee experience is so intimately connected to the customer experience. If we don't have the right things in place, to your point, Marty, to make sure that our employees do feel supported and motivated and that we're investing in their success, like if we don't have the right things in place, things like your annual review process will undermine your customer experience. Believe it or not, that will have an impact on what you're able to do when it comes to serving those that you're trying to serve. So, all right, Marty, let's go back to this first problem of the disconnected review. What from your standpoint, if you say you decided, all right, Declan Media is going to grow and you're going to have employees and you're now responsible, you're going to have to review performance. I mean, what would you do differently, having been giving reviews in big corporations? Like, how would you approach the process differently?
I mean, hopefully I'd approach it in a scenario where at the beginning of the year or the end of the previous review cycle, right, there would be clearly identified goals and things that can be measured, right? Not just do better or, like, hey, we'd like you to complete some training, or let's make sure that there's, I think it's that having something that's measurable that is clearly communicated to the employee, like, this is the expectation for you this year. So again, at the end of the year, it's like, yeah, geez, Justin, I really wish you would have done more offsite training maybe next year. And you're like, wait, how was I supposed to know that? I was focused on, this big project that you gave me. So I would think that's where I'd start, just to try to be as clear as possible. I'd also try to make them short and thoughtful versus, kind of, again, checking a box to make sure that you had this 50-page document that just kind of is very redundant.
Yeah. For me, the biggest grievance I have with annual reviews is that I don't believe there's something that our employees are moving toward every year, and it's certainly not a launching off point for them in the year to come. But if we want to get maximum value out of the investment you mentioned, I mean, there's hours or days spent on these things, and there's hope that there's verbatim feedback. There's hope for all these things. What's really the end goal here? And I believe the end goal should be two things. One, I think the end goal should be a moment to reflect back and to affirm, to celebrate, to realign on all of the things that you are already building up to throughout the course of the year, right? If done well, you and I are having some level of, even if it's a brief one-to-one once a week or every other week, and we should be seeing things that are building up, and I should know where are your blockers. I should know what are your successes, and I should be tracking those, and you should be tracking those to say, hey, how's this building up? Because then once a quarter, we should also be having that conversation to say, hey, where are we? Has the goalpost moved, and do we need to readjust? Have we accomplished things sooner than we expected? And now can we add more first quarter, second quarter, third quarter? So by the time you get to the annual review, really what you're doing is saying, hey, let's look back at all that we moved towards. What did we say 12 months ago that we wanted to achieve? How do we do? What prevented us from getting there? And none of this is a surprise, right? It's just how do we take this moment to reflect back and lock in? And then even more importantly, say now, knowing what we know, how does this change and evolve how we launch into the coming year?
Right.
And often it's not. It's, hey, we have to do this for HR. We have to do this for, for payroll. We have to do this for blah, blah, blah. It's not something for our employees, right? To me, it definitely feels like this thing that we just, it takes from everybody. It takes from everybody. It's not necessary for anyone. So that I think to me is one of the first kind of key points to this is, what can you do to have more connective moments between your coaching sessions, if you've got a quality assurance process, if you're doing quarterly updates, right? Those things should be laddering into the annual review process so that the criteria you're talking about, the things that you're measuring, there's nothing surprising, but more importantly, it's also not this race at the end to pull it all together. You've been building this story over the course of the year, and now this is just kind of, hey, this is how we put the bow in the chapter. So that I think is part one for me. The second part, which is I think more complicated and I don't have a good answer for right now, is like we've really got to challenge how we're thinking about the value that's contributed to the business and how we financially or otherwise reward the value that's delivered to the business. My observation is that, in a lot of cases, leaders just struggle in general to show the impact of what customer experience is doing on the business in a broader sense.
Yeah.
And, from a review standpoint, like I do think we should have mechanisms to reward and recognize people who are able to make more strategic impacts on the organization. And I don't have a good answer for that today. I just know that I'm unsettled with the way a lot of organizations do it, and I guess I shouldn't bring a complaint without offering a solution. But I think the place where I just want us to sit and really challenge is like when we think about the impact of only one person being able to get that, and forcing other people to have to go down the paths of development plans or whatever it would be. Is that really going to have the greatest impact on our business? I don't know. I don't know, but it's leaving me unsettled today, Marty. That's where I'm sitting.
That's a terrible place to be.
It's a terrible place to be. Welcome to the new year. Marty, gosh, it is time is flying on us today. But I think the big thing that I want to throw out there for today, and I'd love to hear from people your thoughts on this. But what can you do now? You're kind of you're where you are for your annual reviews that you have to do for the past year, but you are in the place right now to better set yourself up as you go into the reviews that you're going to be giving in a year from now. That I think is the key thing for us to be focusing on more than anything. So I'd love to hear from folks. What are some of the things that you're going to make sure that the conversations that you have every day, every week, every month, every quarter build up to that conversation that you're going to need to have in a year from now? Because if you're thinking about that conversation today, you're going to be more successful when the time finally comes.
Yeah.
But if you do have to lock yourself in the office in the meantime and get some writing done, you know what? You should subscribe to Partners Coffee Roasters. They're going to send some delicious coffee to your house. We don't have a promo code. That would probably be too cool of us. But we'll give you some info on how you can learn more from Partners Coffee. I hope by the time you are watching this that you have officially thawed out from whatever extended snow day you might have had. Or if you didn't have any snow, lucky you. But until next time, Marty, this has been CX and Coffee. We're going to be next week. Next week, Marty, just a quick teaser.
Okay.
I have a $40 bag of coffee. I have a $20 bag of coffee. And I have a $5 bag of coffee. I'm going to blind all three, and we're going to see if we can tell which one is which. You don't want to miss that next week on CX and Coffee. Until then, my name's Justin Robbins. I do this every week with my good friend
Marty Shaughnessy.
We'll catch you next time for a whole new brew.